Greetings, my fellow food lovers and tale tellers. We are so excited to welcome you virtually to this Frostival event, Winter Food Tales. I am Annie Wood. I serve on the board for Food of the North, and I will be one of your guides as we move through this event with my ever-fabulous co-host.
Oh, that's hello. I'm Max Kringen. I'm a lover of stories and the chief storyteller at Tellwell. We're a storytelling agency right here in downtown Fargo, and we love sharing the real stories of real people just like you. And this is why I am so excited, extra excited, to be sharing some of your stories here tonight.
At Food of the North, we believe food can change the world. Our mission is to celebrate, connect, and empower our local food community in Fargo-Moorhead and beyond. The co-founders and my fellow board members are Megan Myrdal and Gia Rasier. So, when Megan, Gia, and I were chewing on some ideas for ways to keep our community connected during a time when it's not so easy to share a meal, we found ourselves reminiscing about our favorite meals and food experiences, which is when the light bulb went off, you know, as they say, and everyone had stories about food, so why not ask them to tell us a tale, even if it's a tall tale about food? So, tonight what you'll get to experience are videos submitted by community members from near and far, recounting tales of food gone by.
Stories have the beautiful power to transport us to other places and times. They also help us understand more about the people around us and other people's experiences. So after watching all of the submissions, we picked out a baker's dozen, or 13, tales to share with you tonight. So hopefully you've settled in with something delicious to eat and drink. We have our Fargo Brewing up here. Shout out to the Boiler Room tonight for partnering and offering Marge's Hot Dish as an option tonight. As you watch, we hope you'll laugh, you'll smile, and maybe you'll be reminded of a favorite food moment in your life. Now, not everything has to be a competition, but isn't it so much more fun when it is? Tonight, you, the audience, will get to vote on your top 3 favorite tales and cast your vote through Poll Everywhere. Winners get prizes, which of course are local eats and drinks.
All right, enough of us two schmucks. Let's dish up the good stuff, the food tales that you came for. First up, we've got someone who many people in our community know for her infectious laugh and love of joy. Some might even call her a ham. We give you a tale told to us by Erica Johnsrud.
Hi, I'm Erica Johnsrud, and I grew up in a small town in southwest Minnesota. So essentially, I am an old woman at heart, and the only way I know how to care for people is with food. I grew up around great cooks and great bakers, and I didn't realize some of the stuff that I knew was strange until I went to college. I will never forget the first time I asked some of my friends, where do you go to buy meat? Or do you know where I could get some good ham balls? That is right, ham balls. I grew up in a town that had a phenomenal butcher shop. And so that is where we got our meat. I don't think I even knew that you bought meat at a grocery store until I went to college. And so when I asked that question, everybody was super weirded out and had no idea why I was asking. But more importantly, why I was asking for something called ham balls. Nobody had ever heard of that before. And it's something I grew up on. My grandpa made it growing up. We had it every year at Christmas and always at any special holidays. And my mom continued that tradition. And our hometown butcher shop made the best ham loaf that you made into ham balls. Ham loaf is essentially meatloaf, except made with ham. And it's so good. And even after college, people are always confused when I start talking about ham balls. And apparently you can't get them up here. They are my favorite. And so many great memories I have are centered around ham balls and holiday foods. My grandpa was an exceptional cook, and that's what I knew growing up. So you went to the meat market and you bought ham balls. Duh. But another thing that I didn't know was strange until I came to college was that people don't just make a cake for fun to have people over and to eat it. This is something my mom did all the time. We would come home at the end of the day and she would be like, I think I'm gonna make a cake. And then we can call Mary and see if Sam and Mary wanna come over for cake. This was super normal at my house. It happened all the time. We'd go to a basketball game, but before we went, my mom would make some cookies. So if we saw some friends at the basketball game, we could invite them over afterwards for cookies. You had to have something to give them when you invite them over to hang out. So that was something that we always had at our house. If you were gonna invite somebody over, you made a cake, you made cookies, you made something. My mom is such a good baker, and I love that about her. But it was not something I didn't know. Or I guess I didn't know that was not normal. And I will never forget my freshman year in college, I was talking about inviting somebody over to hang out. And I sat there for a minute and I thought, okay, well, I don't have a car right now, but I'm guessing my roommate would bring me to the grocery store so I could get cake. I need something to hang out with people. And those are some things that I didn't know not everybody grew up with. That's how you take care of people in my house. You feed them.
I love this story for so many reasons. So first of all, not everybody watching probably knows that Erica is also my roommate, and I can attest to several things. First of all, ham balls always make an appearance. She is always baking things to take care of people, and I will never forget our first apartment together. We lived in South Fargo, and Erica had just gone home for Easter. So what I love about Mama Sharon, and that's Erica's mom, is Sharon, and by the way, you are absolutely turning into your mother, is that Mama Sharon, instead of doing like a traditional Easter basket, she'll do a meat basket from the butcher shop in Dawson. So the first time the first Easter that we were living together, she brought home like all of this meat and just like filled our freezer. And I'm like, what the heck are you doing? And then she made me Mama Sharon's ham balls. And from that moment on, I knew, assuming both of us are still single for a very long time, that we will be living together for that long or longer. I love that so much. So Miss Annie, we started with ham balls. Delicious start. A really It's hard to top a good handball. But what are we serving up next?
Well, Max, we get to hear from the one and only Katie Beedy, a Cobber grad and lover of cooking and baking, as evidenced by her Instagram account, where she posts many delicious dishes. And frankly, I'm still waiting for an invite to dinner. Katie, wink, wink. I also ran into her today while picking up my own Marge's hot dish from the boiler room. So, anywho, she's definitely got something to taco about tonight that will warm your heart.
Hi, my name is Katie, and I want to share with you the story of a very special meal. So, one of the things that I have missed the most throughout this pandemic, other than the obvious, like hanging out with my friends who live across the country or hugging my parents, is the simple act of reading alone in a restaurant. It's one of my very favorite things to do, and the real shame is that when the pandemic hit, I had just started building up the confidence to do this in Fargo. Because I have lived in the Fargo-Moorhead area for 24 of my 25 years of life, and for so many of those years, I was terrified to sit alone at a table. Scared that I would inevitably run into someone that I knew and that they would pity me or think that I was lonely, or worse, scared that they would take the open seat across from me as an invitation. But when I moved to St. Paul, Minnesota, right after college graduation, I didn't really know anyone. I mean, I knew my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, and I had a few friends in the area, but for the most part, I could grab my book, claim my window seat, and sit undisturbed in a sea of strangers. And that is where this story begins. So it was a cold, snowy winter's night in 2018, and I decided to walk from my apartment on Ohio Street to this little place called Home Street Home Cafe. The food there wasn't really anything special, but it was close to home, and there were Christmas lights strung in the window, so I became something of a regular. And that night, I walked in, I placed my order for a grilled goat cheese and apple sandwich, a green salad, and a glass of red wine, and I claimed my usual seat. I even remember what I was reading that night. I brought An American Marriage by Tayari Jones, which I highly recommend. The cafe was built in an old apartment building, so no matter how many chalkboard menus or white linen tablecloths they filled it with, you always felt like you were sitting and eating in somebody's living room, which I loved. And that night, there was only one other occupied table in the entire place. It was this older couple, probably in their mid-70s, tucked away in the corner. And it was a very average night for me. I sat, I ate my sandwich, drank my wine, read my book. It was cozy, but nothing really spectacular. I didn't think that it would stick with me for the rest of my life by any means. And then Elvis Presley's Can't Help Falling in Love with You started playing on the radio. And mind you, at this point, I was deep in my book, but I heard the sound of a chair scraping against the wooden floor. So I looked up and I saw the older couple in the corner scrambling to their feet, just absolutely beaming. And the gentleman announced to me or to the waiter or to no one in particular that they had danced to that very song at their wedding some 50 years ago. And he led his wife by the hand to the center of the room where they slow danced to the entire song, with only me and the staff as the only witnesses to this immense and intimate act of love. And I don't know if it was the wine or the warm glow that the Christmas lights cast over the whole scene, but that sight of that couple dancing in the middle of the restaurant remains one of the most beautiful and romantic things I've ever witnessed. And I wouldn't have been there to witness it if it wasn't for food. If these strangers and I hadn't decided to warm up over sandwiches and wine and soup at a neighborhood cafe on the same cold night at the exact same time, we wouldn't have this beautiful shared memory. And this story just serves as a reminder to me that a meal doesn't have to be the best thing you've ever eaten to be the most memorable. You know, when I was sitting down to take notes for this story, I just on a whim decided to do some Googling, and I learned that Home Street Home is no longer open. They closed last year, whether as a result of the pandemic or other reasons, I'll never know. I don't know where that couple is. I doubt I'll ever see them again. And I don't know when I'll be able to sit alone in a restaurant with a book again. But when I do, if I hear Elvis Presley on the radio, I know I'll think of them. Thank you.
I'm so sorry. I got so lost in that story. Well, okay, I have so many things to say. First of all, can we give Miss Katie Beedy some love in the comments for her new fabulous hair? Because that is magical. Second of all, I love the goat cheese and apple sandwich. Girl, you so fancy. But two, your way with words is pure magic. I mean, I might be a little bit biased. Katie Beedy might also be a professional storyteller. She is one of the storytellers from Tellwell. But thank you so much for sharing that story with us. Also want to say a big thank you tonight, both to Boiler Room. We've been munching on this hot dish. It is great. If you haven't baked it yet, $3.75 for exactly 18 minutes. We know that it didn't come with instructions, but in case you haven't, do that. Also want to say a huge thank you to Livewire, being the folks running the production tonight, so we can focus on all of the juicy stories.
Oh, Max got to work a pun in there, didn't you? If you've ever stopped by the Red River Market, it is pretty likely that you have seen or been greeted by our next storyteller, Alex Cusa. He's one of those really friendly folks who you just want to sit down and share coffee or a meal with, knowing that you're going to have a really great conversation, and then it's very likely that he will regale you with tales of Rwanda, or he might tell a corny joke to get you to laugh. I know, I'm trying too hard. Okay. Cusa also wins our award tonight. No actual award is being given out, but he submitted a video from the farthest away from Fargo. He's currently living in Rwanda, but loves Fargo so much, he wanted to tell his tale. So let's hear what Cusa has to share.
Mudira Mahoro Fargo, peace be with you in my mother tongue, Kinyarwanda. Welcome, I'm in Kigali, Rwanda, the land of 1,000 hills. And what an honor to share about what gathered us around the table for a meal. So when it comes to eating in Rwanda, number one, it's very convivial. You have to be with family, you have to be around the table, and we always say that food tastes better when you share with beloved ones. That's number one. Number two, I'll say that a typical meal would have, because you gotta remember the weather, we're an equatorial country, so it's very green, very lush, as you can see. And we have anything ranging from eggplant, peas, all kinds of vegetables you can imagine. So at the table, I would see vegetables. Then meat. In the meat section, usually chicken, beef, and goat meat. Then moving on to this, kind of those staple foods is rice, beans, anything ranging from cassava, potatoes. These are usually kind of the main meal as well, to be enhanced with a sauce, preferably spiced. So for some of you with the more sensitive Scandinavian palate, where anything above ketchup is spicy, well, it gets pretty sweaty. And the typical hot sauce we use sometimes is called akabanga, which is made out of yellow pepper mixed with olive oil. And I think some of you have given you, it's in a small eye drop kind of bottle format. And with that, I would add a lot of fruits for dessert. So papaya, mango, passion fruits, pineapple. So you can imagine all the equatorial tropical fruits, you name it, we have it. But with that, honestly, it's easy for me to give you a glimpse, but the best way of having a real tangible experience of Rwanda is just flying to Rwanda. But I forgot something very important. Rwandans, we love drinking adult beverages, I'll say. And one of the things we do is, as you can see even behind, I have some, these are banana trees, I'll say, and anything ranging from plantain to matoke, which is the green banana that we serve to eat, but as well we can do wine out of it. So banana wine and banana beer. So it's quite strong, maybe 13-14%, but it's very flavorful and people love it. So with that, I think That would be, I think, a typical Rwandan meal. And once again, I'm hoping that you hashtag visit Rwanda. And let me know if I'm here. I'll be honored to show you around. And even if I'm not, my family will. Until I see you, stay warm.
Okay, there are so many reasons that I feel personally attacked by Alex's video. First of all, stay warm. It actually is really warm here right now, so I'll give you that. But I love the comment about spicier than ketchup. I don't know if he's watching tonight, but we have a guy in our office. His name is Aaron. Some of y'all may know him, and for him, ketchup is far too spicy. Also, Miss Annie just pointed this out. Alex is a cobber, and he happened to have a corn cob in his hand the entire time. So,
thus the reason I threw in the corny jokes line.
Oh, I get it.
The best jokes are the ones you have to explain. All
right.
right.
I'm just a little slow tonight. Let's just keep drinking.
Crack open that beer.
Faster.
The best thing about hosting food-related events is you get to eat, as we evidenced, and drink during them. Like, what more could you want?
Amen.
So I don't have a great segue for that one. So sometimes family recipes are simple, but when you try to cook with your family members, you might have some differing opinions about the best way to whip together the meal, or maybe one of you doesn't care at all about how it's done, as long as it tastes good. So next, Margie and Dick Bailly are going to tell us about a favorite chilly weather recipe that they have been cooking up together for years.
Greetings, Frostival fans. We're Margie and Dick Bailly, and we are here to share with you one of our favorite recipes of all time. This is called Chili Night Chili. We have actually been fixing this for over 53 years. It comes from the Peg Bracken cookbook called I Hate to Cook, and we got this as a wedding gift when we were married in 1967. And this was one of the favorite recipes out of there. So we have fixed it, oh my gosh, probably 8 or 10 times during the winter, a few times during the summer, and every Halloween we have had this and made certain that our kids would have a lot of hot chili in their tummies before they went out to eat all that chocolate. So I'm going to show you how to do it, and it's really, really simple, and Dick can chime in because we do vary a little bit in terms of our interpretation of this recipe.
That's for sure.
But the first thing that you do is chop the onion, and then you melt a little, Then you melt a little bit of the butter, and then you put that onion in there, and you stir it around a little bit with your spoon. And when that gets softened up a little bit, then we add the ground beef, and you use probably about a pound of ground beef. So we add that in there, like that. And then stir that around. And then after that, when that's all kind of blended in, then you add tomato soup, a can of tomato soup. That goes in there, and you stir that around. And then you can add either 1 or 2 cans of kidney beans. It sort of depends on what your family and your family like. So we'll say we usually add 2 cans of kidney beans.
I prefer 1 can though.
The sous chef has his own way.
She's a 2-can
things.
person.
Yes. All right, you stir it up like that, and then when it's all nice and melded together, then you add the chili powder, and then sometimes I add a little bit of cinnamon if I'm feeling particularly spicy.
Lots of chili powder.
Lots of chili powder, absolutely. All right, you cover that with the lid, you put it on the stove top, and this is a very important thing to do. You put it on simmer on the stove top, and then you get all of your warm clothes on, and you go out and get really cold, because then it tastes absolutely magnificently when you come in and you have this hot chili and you're really, really, really cold. So we're all bundled up, and actually we're going to go out and see if we can maybe find some money in a snowbank. I've heard that's happened around this area, as I understand it. There was a very famous movie that depicted that. So we're going to check it out. You know, a little extra cash would be really, really cool.
Might still be there.
It could very well still be there. So we'll be back in about a half hour. And if you're not still here, we totally encourage you to fix this recipe. It's really, really easy. It's really, really tasty, And I hope that you'll love it as much as we do and have over all of these years. So, bon appetit.
Yum, yum.
Oh my God, I love them so much. Margie and Dick are some of my favorite people. They are just darn delights. Darn delights. I feel like as you were writing the script for tonight, maybe you were Margie and I was Dick, just like chiming in with random things that were unexpected, and you're like, "Shut up, Max."
I would never tell you to shut up, Max.
Oh my God, thank you so
At
much.
least not out loud.
So sweet. Oh my goodness. Well, again, thank you, Dick and Margie. You guys are great. I cook like Margie, which is why I'm so thankful for Erica, because she does not. So thanks. Anyway, also thank you to the Frostival and the Convention and Visitors Bureau for helping us make cold cool, and for also providing support for tonight's event. We couldn't have done it without you.
Including these bomber hats.
They're very warm. I'm not a small person, and I'm very sweaty.
We might not come back on after the next one with these still on. All right. So, Max, I know, every Fargoan loves Sandy's. And truth be told, I do not think any others can compare. However, I want you to let this idea percolate for like a hot minute. What if you could make your own delicious donuts? The next tale we're going to hear is from the lovely Allie Burke, who many of you may know from her days working at 20 Below. And her tale just might give Sandy's a run for their money.
Hi, my name is Allie, and this is a tale of donuts and family traditions. When my husband was growing up, he was homeschooled, so that meant that anytime there was a really big blizzard that forced the schools to close, well, that didn't really give them the day off because their home was their school. So Mama Kitty had the brilliant idea that anytime there was such a day, they would take the day off of schoolwork and make homemade donuts instead. Now, don't get me wrong, or rather, don't get me wrong. I, like any good Fargo citizen, love Sandy's Donuts just as much as the next guy. But, you know, there's just nothing like a warm, fresh donut right out of the fryer, dripping with chocolate and drizzled with peanut butter and made with the people you love. You can't beat it. And their one rule that they had was that you eat as many as you want, even if you have donuts for dinner that day. So I am all about that. It's a tradition that we've carried on to this day. We still make donuts every winter with the family, and it always makes us look forward to winter. You know, some days there are just those cold, blizzardy days where it's so freezing that the air hurts your face and there's so much snow piled up that you can't even get out your front door. So instead, you just stay at home, cozy up indoors with the people you love, and make warm memories, and it's the best. So for us, typically, Donut Day is the first blizzard of the year, but sometimes if it's a particularly long winter and it just seems like it's droning on and you kind of need a reprieve, sometimes we take a light flurry day and we call it a blizzard and make donuts anyway. So it's one of my favorite family traditions for sure, and I love that, like most family traditions, it revolves around food. It always makes me look forward to winter. And I have my recipe handy right here. So if anyone wants to try this at home, it'll be fun. And I'm gonna give the disclaimer that this is your classic mom recipe that doesn't have a whole lot of instructions, but I'd encourage you to pause this video and take a screenshot and give it a try at home. It's our family's recipe for donuts. It's got a chocolate sauce and a peanut butter drizzle. You can also dip them in powdered sugar instead, and either way, it's gonna be great. Maybe you'll find a new tradition that your family loves. I hope you do, and happy winter.
I love that so much. I love family traditions. I actually have my grandma Dolly makes donuts, and she is a really solid donut maker. But what's funny, I really appreciate Allie sharing like the family recipe, and don't press pause yet. rewind, and then do it. But my grandma Dolly refuses to share her recipe. She's like, no, you just, you put a couple of scoops of this and a couple scoops of that. And we're like, well, how much is in a scoop? And she's like, I don't know. It's just like my magic tin measuring cup. So I love her. Also want to say big congratulations to Rob and Allie. They are welcoming a new little one into their home. So family traditions are growing.
That's so fun. And my grandma cooks like your grandma Dolly. I don't know if it's like a thing that like when you hit a magical age that like that tin measuring cup too. Like I also remember drinking just like water or milk out of it at my grandma's house.
Yeah.
Where it's like not only a measuring cup, it's like an all-purpose cup. And you just scoop everything with it and it turns out delicious. And I can't recreate it and I'm really sad about it. So, here in the upper Midwest, I bet many of us have eaten our fair share of delicious pumpkin things and squash dishes that make us say, oh my gourd, this is so good. I really love puns. I don't know if anyone can tell. I always, though, really do enjoy hearing about how these garden staples are used in other areas of the world. So in our next tale, you'll hear Reverend Mitch Pierre-Noël Dovier, and she's going to share with us a Haitian food tradition that will warm you from the inside out.
My name is Mitch Pierre-Noël Dovier, and I am originally from Haiti. So today I want to tell you about my favorite food. It is freedom soup. Freedom soup. Now you're wondering what it is. It is the squash soup or pumpkin soup that is a staple of Haitian food, mostly consumed on January 1st of every year. So why do we call it freedom soup? It's because during colonization by the Spaniards and the French people, pumpkin was kept away from the slave. Even the slaves were the ones actually harvesting it, and some of them who actually were household were working in the house of the masters. They cook it, but they were not allowed to even taste it. So none of them. It was like the master's fancy thing. It wasn't a slave thing. So after 12 years of the battle for our independence, which we won in 1804, January 1st. Oh, by the way, we fought the best army in the world then, which was the Napoleon army. And then we won. We didn't have any outside help. It was a battle for 12 years that was by the slaves with the French. So we won the battle. And then we became the first Black Republic in the world. So since then, since January 1st, 1804, in every household, as a reminder of our freedom and also from France, Haitian make squash soup or pumpkin soup in their house. So it is also, and then we share it with our neighbors, with family and friends, and with everyone. It is also a reminder of our dignity. So we got our dignity back from the masters, from the colonizers. And then also we got back our dignity and humanity because we are all human beings regardless our skin color. It is also a reminder of resilience and strength and courage because as Black people, we are very strong. And then we have courage and we are very resilient. So this is the story of that soup. And then I am, as a Haitian, very proud of the story of that soup. So every time that I have that soup, it's remind me of the struggle of my ancestors. They actually fought for me to be here today to tell you that story. Now you know my story. So that's mean you are not a stranger to me anymore, or I am not a stranger to you anymore. It's my story become yours. And then we are in this fight together. So thank you so much for allowing me to share my story with you. See you.
Reverend, thank you so much for sharing that story with us. Annie was just telling me a story offline that the Reverend is from California and just like found this food event and submitted a story. So thank you so much for sharing that. Pumpkin soups, squash soups have my heart in the fall. So
Love that. And so fun to hear about another culture and the way that has so much meaning for you. So like Rev Mitch said, now that you know that story, it's your story and we're not strangers anymore. So now, Max, I know because you and I have had many a happy hour together that we both love local beers, ciders, wines, and meads. I
do love meads.
I know. So many fun things here in Fargo-Moorhead. And I just want to say that I think it's time for us to do a cheers. Cheers to events where we get to eat and drink on screen.
Amen. Just wait, are there events that we don't get to eat and drink on screen? I think
Not that I do anymore.
Great,
Okay.
Great.
But have you ever tried making your own wine, Max?
I have not, but once again, Erica did.
It's good to have friends who have hobbies, isn't it?
It's really great to have friends that have hobbies because I get to try all the delicious things. And they were much better than either of us anticipated.
What fun. What a happy ending.
What a
Happy
joy.
surprise. Okay, I've never tried making my own wine, which is probably for the best if we're being honest. But something I learned from our next speaker is that alcoholic beverages, when it's really, really cold, like it was there for like a solid 2 weeks in February, there's something fun that happens to them. And so our next speaker, Marcus Kruger, who some of you may know from the Clay County Historical Society, is going to tell us about a special treat that he likes to make to get through the bitter, bitter cold in February.
Hi, everybody. The winter food tradition that I'm going to talk about is making rhubarb jack. And so a lot of years I make a big batch of rhubarb wine that tastes like garbage. I don't like drinking it, but I have 5 rhubarb plants in my yard and I just can't eat that many pies or crisp, and I just can't pawn it off on enough people. So I end up using a lot of it by making a big batch of rhubarb wine like this. So what I do is on a cold night like tonight, when it's going to get 20 below here in Moorhead, Minnesota, I jack it. And so what that means is I put it in a big bucket, put it outside overnight, and I let it freeze. And alcohol freezes at a much lower temperature than water. So what's happening is the water freezes, and you throw that ice away. Whatever's ice in the bucket, you throw it away. And then you're left with a little bit of liquid that is really, really alcoholic. It's like distilling brandy. So it's like you start off with a rhubarb wine is maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9% alcohol. I don't really test it. And then what you end up with rhubarb jack, it's like brandy. It's like 30%. And so the most common jacking that people hear about is apple jack. You take a hard cider and then you freeze it, and then what you end up with is apple jack. So I just do it with rhubarb wine. And rhubarb jack here, this also tastes gross, but there's less of it. Thanks.
I love that. This also tastes gross, but there's less of it. Marcus, when it's those bitterly cold days, you feel free to invite us over. We'll definitely try it. Also, we just got word while we were watching Marcus's story, the Reverend used to live in North Dakota, so that is her connection. So welcome home, if not virtually.
So Max, how do you feel about breakfast foods?
Big breakfast food fan. I love pancakes, eggs Benedict.
Oh yeah.
Egg in a hole. Go ahead. Oh, we're going to be here all night.
So I love brunch and even Brinner, breakfast for dinner, all day, every day. Frankly, give me breakfast foods. So when I was watching this next video initially, what Carrie Winterstein reveals in the midst of this shook me to my very core. And so get yourselves ready for a tale with a bit of a twist.
Hi. When I was asked to think about some food traditions and stories, I realized we have so many food traditions in our family that it was hard to pick one. So, in honor of Valentine's Day, I'm going to pick the very first one. I didn't grow up with any significant food traditions at all. I think the closest thing I had was the hard, dry hockey puck hamburgers that my dad made, because evidently my mother liked them that way. And so I had no idea what kind of food traditions might be in store for me when I met David Winterstein. His family had lots of food traditions, particularly the Norwegian food traditions at the holidays. Things like his dad would bake bread every week, and his mother was a champion pie maker, and they made sweet soup and flatbread and krumkaka and, of course, lefse with their own customized lefse sticks made by their grandparents. David and I met doing a show at Theater in the Round in Minneapolis, and David happened to host the opening night party, and I went and I had a really good time. And as the party was breaking up, it was clear to me that I probably shouldn't drive home. Well, David, being a complete gentleman, said that I may stay. And so I did. And in the morning, he got up and he went to make breakfast. Now, I didn't know that David was making breakfast until he came in to say, I am making waffles, and I don't have an egg beater, so I'm having to whip the egg whites with a fork. But they'll still be really good waffles. And I said, I don't eat breakfast. And he looked at me and without missing a beat said, you will now. And thus began our years of food traditions. And I am delighted to be on this food adventure with the Winterstein family.
The way to a woman's heart is through the stomach.
I love that in so many ways, but leave it to the Wintersteins to have like the perfect filter, put the recipe up at the end, have a nice little title. They are brilliant storytellers, and I do love waffles. I actually got this really, really great book called Will It Waffle?
What?
And yeah, it's magic. And it shows you all the different ways to use your waffle iron, from making waffle brownies to hash browns that are crispy in all the little bits and like perfect little boats for butter. It's just so great. Also, who doesn't like breakfast? Miss Carrie, we gotta have a conversation. I hope David has converted you. But if not, let me know. I'll make you my waffles. Oh, that sounded...
So we're just going to move right past that one. All right. So many folks in our community know Sam Y. He is a regular at all the locals events. And dare I say, like, if anyone could earn the badge of super supporter of local things, it would be Sam. But what I did not realize about Sam is that he is perhaps more passionate about paella than I ever knew a person could be. But when it's love, you know? And so our next tale really is a love story between one man and his paella, plus a wine pairing recommendation, which is no surprise if you know Sam.
Hello, today I want to talk to you about Spanish cuisine, something that we don't see a lot in our area. The most iconic Spanish dish is paella. Paella comes from Valencia, the rice-growing region of Spain. And if you ask a Valenciano about paella, they'll tell you paella is paella in Valencia. Anywhere else in Spain or elsewhere, it's just stuffed with rice in it. In Valencia, there are several styles of paella. The original is the mountain paella, montana, and that's typically with chicken, snails, and rabbit. Then there's the marisco, that's the seafood, and shellfish and fish. And there's also the mix, but it's not traditional, but you are seeing that more often now. A Valencia traditional paella is very thin, it's rice-centric. After it's cooked, it's about an inch thick or so, and it doesn't have a lot of stuff in it. And there's, of course, even in Valencia, there's the tourist paella, and that's thicker with all kinds of stuff in it. And a traditional paella in Valencia also has no sausage. We tend to see that in America. But of course, in America and elsewhere in the world, paella is much more relaxed. Here are some tips about paella. You do not need a paella pan, even though the dish is named after the pan. A flat fry pan would work just fine. And the rice needs to be short grain. There's bamba rice, paella rice, borio will work. Sushi rice will work too because they're all short grain. As far as liquid to rice, generally is 3 cups of liquid to 1 cup of rice. But you should always have some hot water boiling on the stove just in case you need to add more. Paella should be a little bit on the wet side, should never be dry like fried rice. The stock, chicken stock for meat paella, vegetable stock, of course, if you want to make a vegetarian paella. Vegetarian paella could have zucchini and peppers and onions and eggplants. Eggplants should be cooked ahead a little bit. And there's the seafood, of course. Seafood stock can be purchased or make your own shrimp shells, save your tuna juice, salmon from the can, clam juice. And a paella should also always have red pepper, not the spicy. Spanish cuisine is not spicy, but red pepper. And you can get Spanish red piquillo peppers in the jar, and you order them. A traditional paella should always be served with aioli. Aioli is basically a garlic mayonnaise with some lemon juice in it. You can make your own aioli or buy your best mayonnaise and add some garlic and lemon juice. The Japanese mayonnaise is best. It's about as close to real mayonnaise as you can get. When you make paella with meat, the meat can be cooked with the broth in the rice the whole time. But for making a seafood paella, it's best to partially cook your seafood, sear, grill, hold them on the side, and add that to in the last phase of cooking the rice. That makes timing everything to get done easier. Rosemary is a dominant flavor for paella. Some restaurants even burn a twig of rosemary and put it on the rice at the end, cover it for a few minutes, and to infuse it. Types of paella, I've talked about the mountain, Montana, and the Marisco, the seafood, the mix. There's also the black paella. The black comes from the squid ink, and that's always only with seafood. There's also a pasta paella. It's called fideuà. Fideuà is always with also seafood. The pasta is like small macaroni, and it can also be made traditionally with angel's hair, but cut up about 3 inches long. And the pasta is not parboiled, it's just added with the broth cooked in the pan just like the rice. Enjoy these paellas at home, and you will love it. Enjoy a good Rioja wine with it if you cannot find a wine from Valencia. Enjoy. Goodbye.
I've never seen somebody so passionate about such a specific food.
But paella is delicious.
Paella is delicious, and I feel like there's going to be a Netflix series. Like somebody has to pitch this to somebody about like a passion for paella, one man's journey.
Absolutely, I would watch it.
I would totally watch that.
Also, next time I want Sam to like do a live cooking demo of one of the kinds of paella because I think that would be so fun.
Yeah, I love that. I also think that he saw like the 5-minute timer tick down and he's like, oh, okay, bye. Sam, thank you so much for sharing that story with us. I so want to try your paella.
Also, I really love your wine pairing recommendation at the end. Just like a casual, add that in because you have to have good wine to go with your food as much as possible. So we're about 2/3 the way through our tales for this evening. Time really flies, huh?
Oh, sure does.
So in order to practice for the big moment, when you, the audience, get to cast your votes for the top 3 storytellers, we've got a fun practice question for you that I didn't tell Max was going to happen.
What?
I know. We're going to use the poll everywhere info that you see on the screen to respond to this all-important question. Who is your favorite MC?
What? Anyone, you can't spring this on me. Everybody knows you're the favorite.
I know. It's really just for my ego. Okay, so while we wait for the results to come in, even though we think we might already know how that one's going to turn out, say, Max, do you have any family recipes that you just love?
Oh my goodness. I have so many family recipes that I love. I think one of my favorites, and I warned my mom that this might come. Her name is Mama Beth. Yeah, keep those votes coming in for Max because Max is about to get a whole lot of hate from his mother. So a couple of years ago, I was making my mother's famous Nefla soup, where I really wanted to make my mother's famous Nefla soup. You've had Mama Beth's Nefla soup.
I have. It's so good.
Absolutely. So it is amazing. And she's known far and wide for this Nefla soup. And I was like, Mom, I want to make Nefla soup for my friends. And she's like, oh, okay, that's nice. And I was like, cool. Like, can you share the recipe? And she's like, oh, yeah, of course. And so like an hour goes by, and then 2 hours go by, and then 3 hours go by. And so I call her and I'm like, Ma, give me the recipe. Can you just like take a picture of it? If you need help, just go ask Dad. Like he'll help you take a picture of it. And she takes a screenshot on her phone of like a Pinterest recipe.
No.
Yeah, and I was like, Ma, this isn't your recipe. And I was like, it doesn't have this, it doesn't have this, it doesn't have this. And she's like, oh yeah, I mean you can just sub those out. And I was like, Mom, I'm looking for your recipe. And she's like, I don't really know what it is. It's just like some of this and some of that. And I will tell you what. I know my brother Josh is watching. She shares this recipe with brother Josh.
Does that mean you're not the favorite?
Oh, I'm not the favorite. Josh was the firstborn and is still the favorite. I talked to my therapist a lot about that.
I mean, I'm the middle child, so we're, probably why we're here doing this.
Let's talk about
and asking people to vote who they like more. Okay, so do we have the results in now? It does appear that I have swayed the audience with my charms.
Oh my gosh, you have really swayed them. That is
You
some
wanted it too much,
malarkey.
Max. You wanted it too much, and they could tell.
I just want some love.
Okay, well, I will say you are the best co-host I've ever had during this event.
That got so specific. Well, you're the best co-host I've had during this event. Minus that Marge's hot dish.
That was really good. Okay, so Max, I know that we both have family recipes that we just love, and I think that is a common thread for a lot of us. And so I think we've also talked about how grandmas just had this like magical power to make the perfect dish or the perfect dessert, and of course they do it all from memory. But lucky for us, our next tale comes from Amanda Boer, whose grandma was kind enough to actually write down a special family recipe so it can be passed on for generations.
Hi everyone, my name is Amanda Boer, and for today's food tale, I thought what better place than to come to you from my kitchen. And I actually made a recipe that I haven't made in a long time, which is my grandmother's peanut butter fudge. This recipe is really near and dear to my heart because it reminds me of my grandmother who passed away 2 years ago, and it's something that she made every year for Christmas since I can remember. And when talking to my mom and preparing for today's food tale, my mom said the same exact thing. This peanut butter fudge was her favorite growing up. It was my favorite growing up. And 12 years ago, I asked my grandmother before I got married if she would sit down and teach me how to make it. And that memory was really special to me because I never really had spent time with her one-on-one in my adult life yet. I was just graduating college, and going over to her house to make this and learn from her was just a really special moment. And so I have already started the peanut butter fudge on my stove, which takes a lot of time to stir and keep it just at the right temperature to make sure that the consistency is perfect. And I tell you what, I have made this so many times, and my mom said the same exact thing. We never get it exactly right. My grandma had a special touch when it came to baking and cooking in the kitchen, and that is what I think is so unique about this recipe. Every time I've made it, it reminds me of her, and it makes me miss her, but also celebrate the things about her. She was always a really calm and gentle soul, and also very patient. Whenever I would see her, she was always just very relaxed. And so somebody who tends to rush in my day-to-day life, making something that takes a lot of time just to stir on the stove isn't something I normally gravitate towards. But this recipe has kind of given me a chance to remember to take it slow and make something super special that is something that I will always have forever, and I look forward to passing down to my son. So that's basically my food tale today. I also thought it was kind of fun to pull out a recipe from my recipe box, which I haven't looked at for a long time because I'm guilty of searching online and using internet recipes for most of the things that I cook. And so it's really fun and nice for me to know that I have this recipe from my grandmother. So I can't wait to eat it. I think that the texture is almost there and I can't wait to enjoy. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Oh, I love that story so much.
Isn't it great?
I just love the Boers. The Boers are foodies.
Absolutely.
And what I love about that is Amanda is so fun, so energetic, so full of life that it's really fun to see her kind of have that like moment with us, kind of remembering her grandma. So thank you so much for sharing that story with us. I'm so sorry. I'm reading the script. Can you work in the comment, oh Fudge, when you announce the winner of favorite? Hey, oh my, just wait. You wanted me to announce the winner of that you won?
I did.
Oh Fudge.
I mean, I didn't know that's what was going to happen, but it looks like it's gotten closer, Max.
It's gotten a little bit closer. Well, oh Fudge, you won. Good for you. I'm not a bitter loser at all.
Never, not you. So before we get to our next speaker, I want to invite you all to check out another event from Food of the North. Each month, we host First Fridays, which, as you can probably guess, is on the first Friday of the month. And it's a monthly conversation about food and food systems. March is Women's History Month, and so we've partnered with Lady Boss Midwest to feature 3 women who farm: Verna Craigsness, Amy Rice, and Jen Skoog. It's a free and live-streamed event on our Food of the North Facebook page, so you already know how to get to it, right? You're doing it now. Just next Friday morning at 8 a.m. I know it's early, but make your coffee and you don't have to turn on your video at all. We're just live streaming it, so would love for you to join us to hear the stories of those 3 women farmers. So, Max, I think you and I both know our next storyteller because we actually ran into him while we were having breakfast at Birnbaum's to work on the script.
Oh, Peter?
Yes. So many people might know Peter Schott as the potluck guy, but he has been gathering people together around food for many, many, many years, and his love of food has led him to try all kinds of crazy cuisines. But as you'll hear in his tale, it's always important to stay grounded and remember the land that your food comes from.
Okay, so I have talked myself out of pressing the record button probably about 15 different times now, and I finally just worked up the nerve to do it. So hi, I'm Peter. I am the organizer of the International Potluck. I am the potluck guy, which is something I never thought that I would be called. And so Annie reached out and asked me to share a story for this really awesome event, and I spent a lot of time thinking about, well, what story should I tell? In fact, I spent so much time thinking about it, I missed the first couple deadlines and finally doing it here on the last day that a person can. So I was trying to think about what to talk about. It's kind of like when someone asks you, what is your favorite food or what is your favorite music? It's like, well, that really depends on the context. What kind of mood am I in? What have I had recently? And so I was thinking, well, what story should I tell today? Do I tell the story of my grandma baking bread when I was a kid and her gnarled arthritic knuckles kneading bread, and just my memories of sitting with her in the kitchen? Maybe a special family memory, all the rabbit I ate in Malta, my first love of couscous when I went to Tunisia, the time I went to Singapore and my host tried to take me to McDonald's and I had to spend 10 minutes talking them out of that to get me to take me to a real restaurant. The first time I really loved yogurt when I was eating it in Greece. All the falafel I ate in Israel, eating Nepalese in the Big Brother house in Mexico. Where do I go? What do I start with? I had a really hard time figuring that out. Maybe I tell you the story about how my ex and I had our first major fight over how to make guacamole. The times that I've fallen in and out of love thanks to food. Maybe the most awkward birthday meal ever. But none of those really resonate with what I wanted to talk about today. Or how about the time that I ordered a vegetarian burrito at Chipotle before it was a national chain, back when it was 2 stores in Denver, and that was, I think, 30 years ago, and I still haven't lived that down with my family. They tease me about ordering a vegetarian burrito. I don't know. There's a lot of different places and a lot of different things and a lot of different memories that a person could go to. And that's really the beauty of food, right? Is it's something that connects us all and that we all have to eat, but it's also something that helps us celebrate and appreciate our differences, which is why I started an event called the International Potluck here in Fargo. And I'm not even going to talk about that today, even though that experience has been just an amazing thing for me in my life over the past 5 years, where we've hosted countless events with anywhere from 20 to 250 people. I've made amazing friends. It's been a real joy for me in my life. I'm going to talk to you today about meals on the farm. When I was a kid, I would go out to the farm, to the field with my mom, and my grandma would come along too, the same one that I talked about, making bread. And I just have a lot of fun memories of going out to the field, laying out on the green grass, eating a sandwich or whatever food we had brought out that day, and being there with my dad and with his brother. What I remember most about those times were the walks I took. My grandma would take walks down these section lines, and I would come with her, and I have just a lot of special memories of walking alongside her, holding her hand, and talking as we would go on these walks during these meals. It's the beauty of food, is it's not just about the meal that you're eating, it's about the people that you're with, it's about the memories that are being made, it's about the stories, the recipes, and the love that's being passed down from generation to generation. And so I hope to pass some of those same things on to my own kids so they can pass it on to theirs. So I hope you take some time this week to enjoy some good food, slow down, smell it, just really experience your meal, share a story with someone else, and pass that memory on. Thank you.
What a great message from Peter. Slow down, smell your food. What I love about that, and what I love about Peter, is that he has so many stories, and I kept being like, oh, this is the intro to a story. Oh, this is the intro to a story. Oh, this is the... And then the intro to his story. So, Peter, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I did see in the comments that somebody was like, I really miss the International Potluck. So I hope we get to experience that sooner than later. Maybe we'll do it in a little bit more of a sanitary way now. Not the International Potluck, but just potlucks in general, now that we've seen, pandemic times.
Right? One of these days, we're going to get back to being able to gather around a meal, and I miss that so much. So
I can't wait.
Max, we're getting close to the end here. We've only got a couple left. Can you believe it?
No.
I know. It's gone by so fast. So what a range of emotions tonight. We've laughed. We've smiled. Our hearts have skipped a beat. And our next tale you're going to hear is from the wonderful Sarah Strong, who will regale us with a tale of a very veggie party. So let's take a listen.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and I'm here to tell you about a food memory that I really enjoy. Probably 2 years ago now, in the fall, I went out to Long Island to visit a couple friends, and we went to a farmer's market, and they had honey nut squash from the Row 7 seed company. And so we bought a couple for dinner, and we took them home and just split them in half and roasted them. And we had some leftover Indian food, so we put that on top. And they were delicious. They were creamy, they were a little sweet. You could eat the skin, which I guess you can in most squash, but these were very enjoyable, the skin was. And so they were just delightful. And then I returned home, and I couldn't find any of these squash locally. So my friend living in New York, Grace, I asked her, and she so kindly agreed to send me a whole box of them. So I got a whole box of these honey nut squash in the mail. And someone I was working with at the time, he was familiar with the squash and said if I got these squash, we definitely have to have a squash party. So squash party was born. And there was a house that a friend and I kind of were renting in Moorhead that was mostly empty. For most of the time it was empty. And so we had it there. Just invited like about 10 people total. Some of them very familiar with cooking. Some one farmer, people just enjoying of good, simple things. And there was hardly any furniture in this place. I mean, there wasn't even a table or chairs. So we had some old wine bottles, had some candles in there, played some music, and I gave out some of these squash to people to do with what they wanted. And so we had a few iterations with the squash. One was a Hasselback squash, delicious. Everything was delicious. And yeah, just kind of came together, but there was no master plan. There wasn't a big setup. It was literally a living room with a quilt on the ground and candles, not much other lighting. Really good food, but most importantly, just people willing to know one another and share and spend time together on a pretty chilly evening. So everyone that I talked to from then that went was like, yeah, the food was really great, but mostly it was just the people in the company that was really special. And so something as wonderful and beautiful as squash can really bring people together and get to know different people and ask questions, whether it's about the soil or where did it come from or how would you cook it, and that leading to other questions of your past or just your current experiences. It was really lovely. So I think we took one picture that night of olives, so that didn't even need to be a thing. But fun fact, the squash, the Row 7 honey nut, are now grown by Hildebrandt, so you can get your squash locally. You don't even have to befriend someone in New York or another state. Just go visit them. So I hope you enjoy the squash story and enjoy each other.
There are so many parts of this squash story to unpack.
Yes.
First off, her friend sent her a box of squash.
Which she literally had to unpack.
Which she had, oh my goodness. Okay, so
I couldn't help it.
Okay, anyway, so first, her friend sends her a box of squash, which she literally has to unpack. But then they're like, what are we gonna do with this box of squashes? We're gonna have a squash party. Okay, so this sounds exactly like my friend group, because we will take any reason to have a party. So I love the idea that you have a squash party. Please, next time, would love an invite. I'll take all the photos so that way it is perfectly captured. Also, I love olives, but squash party.
I know, I want to have a squash party now.
Have a squash party.
I have several squash still in my basement because I had a big harvest this year.
Squash party at
Squash
Annie's.
party at my house, except for COVID. So
no squash party.
I will send you all squash in a box through the mail.
So sweet.
I know.
I hope it doesn't get squished. Be a squashed in a box.
Oh no, this got way off track. All right, well here we are, the final tale, the top of the heap. And I know our final storyteller would not want me to say that we saved the best for last, lest he unfairly be given an advantage in the voting. But I've got to say, Michael Olson is one of my absolute favorite Fargoans. He is the kind of guy who has a twinkle in his eye and will always find some way to make you chuckle. And I think you'll enjoy his story very much.
Greetings, friends. Salute. My name is Michael J. Olson, and all right, some of you may be friends. Maybe a handful of you are friends, but the rest of you, I don't know. One of you who is a friend is Annie Wood, and Annie was sweet enough to ask me to be part of this little video they're putting together, and the organization responsible for it is the North of the Food Eaters. People, food with a north in it. Northland Foods, food. If you're up north, you'd eat it. If you were down south, you wouldn't. It's all about the food. North Dakota Food. That's it. That's the organization, North Dakota Food. Anyway, into the story. I'm going to tell you about the most memorable meal I've ever had. Can't say favorite, but my most memorable meal. But first, a few props. These are little golden books. One here called The Pokey Little Puppy's First Christmas, a classic. And then Everything I Need to Know I Learned from a Little Golden Book. This was, published years later, of course, to tell people how enduring these books were. And my mom and dad, like many, bought these books and would read them to their kids. Okay, the meal. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon. In fact, it's an Easter Sunday afternoon. And us kids had done the eggs and the whole thing, and we're all happy. And my mother is baking a ham. And I love ham, so I'm all excited. I'm smelling the ham. Dinner time comes around. We sit down. We say the blessing on the food, of course. And then it gets passed around. The ham comes to me. I couple forkfuls because I love ham, as I said. Pass that along. Oh, she made green Jell-O. I love green Jell-O. Plate of that, I put that a little bit there. And then another side dish came along. And it's in a bowl with a big spoon. And I look in the bowl and it's scalloped potatoes. Scalloped potatoes. I hate scalloped potatoes, so I snuck them to the side. Dad, who doesn't let anything get by him, said, Mike, what are you doing? I said, Dad, I just don't like scalloped potatoes. He says, I don't care. You're going to have some scalloped potatoes. I said, Dad, I really, really don't like them. And in fact, if I ate a scalloped potato, I think I'd puke. And Dad said, nah, you're faking it. So get some scalloped potatoes on your plate, which I did. Take a spoon, Mike, be a man. Eat some scalloped potatoes. So I took a little bit of scalloped potatoes and I put them in my mouth and he said, swallow. So I put them in my mouth and I swallow. And then I jump up, running to the bathroom, past my bedroom that I'm sharing with my older sister at the time. Hey, we were only 7 and she was a little older, what the heck. And I run in there and I vomit all over her little golden books, which were on her bed because she was going to read them all that night. And I puked, I vomited all. Blah. So anyway, there you go. That's my most memorable story. I would say there's a moral to this story. Yes, there's a moral. And that is, even back then, even at 7 years old, I was a man of my word. So in the future, when all this craziness goes away, and maybe those couple of friends out there, if we go out to lunch or dinner, and I eat something and all of a sudden say, I think I'm going to puke. You guys believe me. Believe I'm going to puke and say, Michael, you get up and you run to the bathroom right now. And I'll do that because I'd puke. And I hate scalloped potatoes. And I wouldn't call scalloped potatoes the devil's brew, but I might call them, the devil's goo. The devil's goo. Not that clever, but yeah.
I absolutely love Michael Olson. He is a darn gem. First of all, can we just appreciate for a moment his mustache? Because that's amazing. But also, I wasn't sure that I could ever trust a man who didn't love scalloped potatoes. But now my love for Michael Olson supersedes that assumption. So
I know, he's a man of his word. You can take him for that.
He sure is. He sure is. I love him so much. Also, those little golden books, so cute.
Right? I definitely had some as a kid. Definitely did not throw up on mine, but that's okay. Not everyone does.
I'm not a man of my word, I guess.
Well, if you didn't say you were going to throw up on them, then,
Good point.
All right. So now the tales of our tellers are done, and you'll get to cast your vote to see who has won. I couldn't help it. I had to throw in a rhyme because I'm out of puns. So, if you want to use the information on your screen to cast your vote for the top 3 tale tellers, that is what we are hoping you can do right now. So that means you get to vote for not 1, not 2, but 3 of your favorite votes, or favorite stories from tonight.
Fantastic. Annie, while we wait for some of those votes to come in, do you, by chance, have a food tale of your own to share?
What? Oh, no, I didn't even come prepared. Cue the PowerPoint. Okay. So, let me tell you a tale of cake expectations. A story where a young girl quickly discovers that things aren't always as easy as they seem. Now, to set up this story, you have to know that my mom is a wonderful human. Her name is Laura, and she is one of those wonderfully crafty, creative moms who has never in her life had a Pinterest fail. And it is kind of annoying, and it's really hard to live up to, but she's a great gal, and I really do love her. But when I was a child, she realized that, you know what, I've got 3 kids. There's going to be a lot of birthdays going on here. And so I'm the middle child, which I have alluded to tonight and probably makes a lot of things make sense. And so she took a cake decorating class so that she could make us birthday cakes every year. And so it was so fun to like page through the cake decorating book and pick out my birthday cake every year. Such a special opportunity and tradition to like see my mom creation come to life. And so my first memory of a birthday was actually this. So this is me at 3 years old. That is a freestanding, full-blown dragon cake.
That's amazing.
I know, right? This amazing cake that my mom made. It's a dragon, and it. As a 3-year-old, I was like, oh my God, anything is possible. This cake is made into a dragon, and I can eat the whole thing. So, you know, this was my childhood, experiencing these wonderful cake creations that my mom made. You know, so a couple years later, I wanted a jungle-themed birthday party, as evidenced by the safari hat covering my terrible bowl cut.
Oh my goodness.
But like, look at that cake, right? There's a pond in the middle. There are animals made out of frosting. There's palm trees coming out the top. So these beautiful cake creations always made our birthdays so, so very special. And to be honest, I have no idea what my brother's cakes look like because I'm the middle child and I care about myself. So, but my mom, you know, she would bake cakes for us, and it was so fun. And she has a special frosting recipe that like I've had to coerce out of her, kind of, as many children do when we grow up. And so, I realized though, as I was getting a little older and had been enjoying my birthday cakes, that no one ever really made my mom a birthday cake. Like, we always like picked up a cake from the Dairy Queen, which are great, but not the same. And so, because I'm like 11-ish years old, I thought to myself, my mom deserves a birthday cake. And you know what? If she can make a cake, I bet that talent is hereditary. Surely I am capable of making a cake as well. So I approached my mother with this idea. Mom, I want to make you a birthday cake. And to her credit, Laura, my mother, she says, okay, full well knowing that she's going to have to supervise the baking and making and frosting and decorating of this cake. And so I was like, okay, well, I need a theme. So, of course, I didn't like ask my mom what she wanted on a birthday cake. I thought I should come up with a theme. And at the time, VeggieTales was very popular.
I love VeggieTales so much.
Right? And my mom's name is Laura, so there's a character named Laura the Carrot. And I was like, what 40-something woman wouldn't want a VeggieTale-themed birthday party? So my mom, true to form, is like, okay, let's make the birthday cake. And I managed to bust out this creation. Have a very veggie birthday.
Oh, that is pure
I know.
magic. Also, can we just for a moment appreciate the Annie Wood slicked back hair?
I know, it's really bad.
That's great. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you should break that style out today.
Definitely won't. So I make this cake for my mom. I'm very proud of this. And so for the next few years, I continue on this tradition of making my mom a birthday cake. And she's a good sport, and she continues to supervise my baking and decorating of said cakes. And then a few years had gone by, and I was like, you know, I am getting really good at this cake decorating thing. I think I'm ready for my next challenge.
I'm scared too.
You should be.
Know what this is.
So I realized that my mom always has to make like my cake, my brother's cakes, and my dad's cake too. And so I was like, Mom, let me help you out. I want to make Dad a birthday cake this year. And she was like, okay. Again, full well knowing she's going to supervise all of this and help me out. But she's a good sport, and so she's like, let's do this. What do you want to what do you want to make as a cake? So again, instead of asking my dad, like, what do you want on your birthday cake? I think I can draw inspiration from somewhere. So I look at my dad and I was like, oh my God, I've got it. I'm going to make my dad's face out of cake. And so I set out on this, what I'm sure is going to be this like very flattering birthday cake. And so I pick out a round cake pan, and my dad is not a very round-faced man. And so I bake the round cake, and I get this weird shade of like flesh-colored frosting. And then my dad, he's in his like mid to upper 40s at this point. He doesn't have like a lot going on top. And so like hair frosting never goes great, and especially doesn't go well when you like don't really know if you've put on too much or not enough. And then he's got glasses, but they like, I couldn't draw very straight lines, so his like eyes look like they're off center. But where things really went downhill is when I tried to make the nose. It's just a terrible puddle of like flesh-colored frosting, and I kept thinking if I add a little more, maybe it'll look more like a nose. It definitely didn't. And so I just want to leave you with this moral of this story is making someone's face in frosting is never going to be flattering. And in this case, it was very much the thought that counted. And the only redeeming quality of this cake is that it was chocolate and it tasted delicious.
Just wait, can we just leave this photo up for a moment?
Sure.
You look so proud.
I know.
You look so proud of yourself in this photo. Like, are you proud of yourself in this photo?
Maybe like 13, 14-year-old Annie was like, this is amazing. But like looking back on it, a decade or so and a half later, we realize in our youth the expectations we have of our skills are not always as they seem.
I also think that is that's a story about moms. Moms are amazing, and I think that at least my assumption was that I would just magically like assume all of my mom's cooking skills.
Yes, it does not happen.
It doesn't happen. She's like a master baker, a master cook. She is amazing. Do we have some winners identified?
Is it time? At home, are you going to start doing your drum roll while we get our winner chicken dinner announcement ready? I hope so. I mean, I could make like a really great joke about drumsticks and chicken dinners. I don't know, I'm stretching here.
Do you really have a
No, I
joke?
wish I did. But I could tell you about my grandma Marge. So, as you know, the Boiler Room's hot dish tonight was called Marge's Famous Hot Dish. And no, it's not my grandma's hot dish, but my grandma's name is Marge. And she is one of those wonderful women who had that special touch for baking. And so every year for Christmas, we would have what we called Grammy rolls, because we actually called Marge Grammy. And that is all of my cousins, we called Marge Grammy. And so she had it was a special Norwegian sweet roll that she would make every year. And I, one year during college, asked if I could come up to her kitchen and learn how to make them. And she was like, I mean, I don't think there's anything to learn. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? I've never made these. I don't know how to make these. And she's like, you just mix it all together and then you put them in the oven. And I was like, Grandma, that can't possibly be your instructions. And sure enough, she like on an index card pretty much wrote, just like had like, flour, yeast, butter, cream, mix it, form them into knots and put them in the oven. And like didn't even have a temperature.
That's amazing. So, Grandma Marge?
Grandma Marge.
Or Grammy Marge? All right. Oh, we do have some winners ready to announce. All right. So, just wait. Are you guys ready? All right. In third place, we have the one, the only Miss Erica Johnsrud.
Let's give Erica some claps from home.
I was going to say, do we have some like celebratory music?
I know, we should have asked.
Celebrate food times, come on, right? I don't know.
So our second favorite food tale of this evening came to us from Margie and Dick Bailly.
Oh, I love their... I really want to be invited over.
I know, I feel like I want to watch them. Like, I think they should host a cooking show.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be so sweet. And in first place, our number one story in the first... Is this the first ever?
This is the first ever.
First ever Frostival Food Tales comes to us from Miss Katie Beedy.
All right.
Oh, congratulations, Miss Katie. You're number one. I love that.
We heard so many wonderful food stories and tales this evening, and I'm just so grateful to the community members who all submitted stories to share with us tonight. I think, like we said at the beginning, it's not about making it a competition, but sometimes it's a little more fun when there's something at stake. And so we want to thank all of you for tuning in this evening. A big thank you to the Livewire crew for running our production today. Thank you to the Frostival and the Convention and Visitors Bureau for sponsoring tonight. And thank you so much to the Boiler Room for partnering with us to offer Marge's hot dish. Max and I can confirm it's delicious.
It's magical. I think we need a couple more really, really big thank yous to the folks who had the foresight to create what was Ugly Food of the North and now just Food of the North. So want to give a big shout out to Megan and Gia and Annie who joined their board as well. We're so thankful for you guys sharing the amazing stories of food here in Fargo and the Upper Midwest. So thank you guys for doing what you do.
And Max, thanks for jumping in as my co-MC this evening. Wouldn't have been the same without you.
Go on.
And I mean, I couldn't have won the MC voting contest if there was no one else to vote for. So, hey, there's that. So, Max, should we end with a toast?
Oh, let's end with a toast.
Max, here's to bread, for without bread, there would be no toast.
Oh.
Have a great night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Have a great night. Bye-bye.